really thrilled that you're with us today, and we almost have 100 people in the room, probably about 89 at the moment. They're still pouring in. One just arrived from Europe, actually. Anyway, Dan's going to talk about photos, the new photo app today, and I'm going to let him talk about himself and what he intends to, how he intends to organize his presentation. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. All right. First of all, who I am, Dan Wassink, live in Michigan, and we're just getting some spring weather here. Actually, in Holland. I'm in Holland. We have a Tulip Time Festival, which is starting. All the junk food stands just started setting up yesterday, so I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, spring is here finally, which is great. I have been in the publishing industry for over 20 years. And also was a genius at the local Apple store here for close to 3 years. And what I decided to do was just merge those two experiences together and publish tutorial. What I found out when I was a genius wasn't necessarily, I mean, we had some technical problems, but a lot of times it was, ironically enough, iPhoto, where people just had iPhoto questions. So you ended up helping them out, and then they got me to do some one-to-one trainings. If any of you are familiar with Apple, they have one-to-one trainings where they will train you how to use different software. So basically, I just decided to merge those two experiences together and start creating tutorials. So I created Noteboom Productions, Noteboom being my wife's maiden name. Thought it sounded a little bit better than Wassink. Noteboom's a little more fun to say. So I created Noteboom tutorial or Noteboom Productions, and basically threw a few different apps out there, and the tutorials seem to stick. And been doing it now for about 5 years, and I've had over 225,000 downloads from the App Store, with an average rating of 4.4 stars. So we're pretty happy with the result. And it's really interesting because I dare say half of my customer base is outside of the United States. It's just intriguing how the whole thing has come about. But basically, we produce tutorials, or I produce tutorials on how to use the Mac, the iPad, and the iPhone. And you might have heard me say this before, but it really started out a while back when I would help my sisters. And, they didn't want to learn how to necessarily tackle the computer. All they wanted to do was, I'll pick on iPhoto again. They just wanted to know how to organize their photos, their kids and all that. And just like I say, they just found a need for that. And there are some more technical training stuff out there, like lynda.com. I found that it wasn't just more of the basic, simple, let's just get you going and get you started. So that's kind of what I try to cover. Don't try to get too technical with this stuff. So that's a little bit about my background and how Noteboom Productions tutorials came to be. I now offer my tutorials through the App Store, and we started a subscription service back in October 2014. And basically you subscribe to the site, and then you get all of the tutorials. I found out that many people were downloading or purchasing multiple tutorials, so we found that this would be a good way to let everyone have all of my tutorials without having to purchase them separately all the time. So that's an open production. That's myself. What George asked me earlier in the week, can you do something on the new Photos app? As many of you know that Apple is replacing or has replaced iPhoto with the new Photos app. They also just with Aperture, and I dare say that the Photos app is a replacement for Aperture, although I wouldn't really necessarily call it a replacement for Aperture, but definitely for. And I've been using the beta version of Photos now for several months, and my personal experiences, I really like it. I do not miss iPhoto at all. It was just getting to be slow and sluggish, and and the new Photos app. I have about 20,000 photos, and it just performs much better. But not so much that. What I really, really enjoy about it is how you can take a photo with the iPhone or with your iPad, and it just automatically shows up in the new Photos app on my Mac. Now, iPhoto had something similar, but it was a little bit clunky. This just seems to be seamless. Also, if I make an edit on my phone or on my iPad with any one of those photos, that edit shows up on my Mac, and vice versa. I make an edit on my Mac. Maybe I want to turn a photo black and white. With iCloud Photo Library, it shows up on my iPad or my iPhone as black and white. So to me, that is the holy grail kind of thing. I no longer have to. It's no longer device centric. It's doesn't matter what device I'm on. I go and take a photo. I go and edit a photo. I create an album. It all shows up on all of the devices. So to me, that is a huge plus. But there are some that are missing. Primarily the places, and I loved the places. I have a couple of Panasonic cameras, which I really love, and they take beautiful photos, but they do not record the location of the photo when I took it. And I've been pretty diligent about doing that. I have most of my photos in my personal library. They are tagged where the photo was taken. I can't do that with the Photos app anymore. It will show the location as long as the photo has the location information, such as from an iPhone, but it is not, you cannot place that information into a photo taken from a camera that does not have the location information, which iPhoto you used to be able to do. So I'm hoping that that is something that they will add in the future. I have no clue, and I haven't seen a lot of complaints about it, unfortunately. I was hoping that there would be a little more of an uproar about it. So I don't know if it's going to be something that they're going to add or not. So you can do it through third-party apps, which I haven't quite figured out yet, played around with. And ironically, most of my photos I've been taken have been with my iPhone, so I haven't pulled out my Panasonic cameras probably in a few months. So maybe that's a clue right there. So the Photos app places iPhoto. It's much faster. I like the organization of it with the moments collections in years, and I love the iCloud library. What I don't like about it is it's missing the places feature, and some people are not happy with the iCloud photo library. You have to buy space from Apple. I have to pay them $4 a month to get their 200 gigabyte plan because I have too many photos. So you do have to pay now for that iCloud photo library. As far as Aperture is concerned, that's a tough call. Aperture had a lot of features that Photos is missing. And if you're used to Aperture and you use a lot of those features, you will probably not want to go to Photos. I used Aperture primarily for organizing my photos and just play around with Aperture, so it wasn't that big of a step back for me to go to Photos. But depending on how you use Aperture, it could be a big step backwards going into Photos. If you use it primarily for organization, you'll probably be okay. But if you use a lot of the adjustments and the meta tags and the things that you could do with Aperture, it's going to be an adjustment, and you might want to hold off on that. Now, the nice thing is when you open up Photos, you can still use Aperture and iPhoto. So you can always go back. The bad thing is if you make an edit in Aperture, it's not going to show up in the Photos app. So you kind of have to use one or the other. But you can use the Photos app to try it out. You're not going to ruin anything. You don't like it, you can go back to Aperture and you'll be fine. So those are some things that I like about it and what I don't like about it. What I thought I would do in this presentation is just show you a few of the videos from the tutorial. I have a tutorial on Photos that I just released last week. So I thought I'd show you a few of the videos, and maybe we can do a Q&A after each video, or if we want to keep flowing along, we do a Q&A at the end. It doesn't really matter to me. The videos are anywhere from 5 minutes to 3 minutes long. I thought that I would cover, the first one is the videos I'm going to talk about coming from iPhoto and a little bit about Aperture. So you're going to see a few of the differences there. Then I also have in the list here, I'm going to talk about the iCloud Photo Library. I'm also going to talk about Stream. If you do not want to use iCloud Photo Library, you can still use Photo Stream to import video or import photos from your iPhone, and you don't have to pay Apple. So that's just another way of doing it. But it doesn't do nearly as much. So I have a little a 3-minute video on Photo Stream. I also have in here how to manage multiple libraries, and we'll take a look at the library. And if you're used to iPhoto, you know that there's a sidebar on the left side where you can see all of your albums. When you open up Photos, the sidebar is no longer there. We can bring that back, so it gives a little bit more of an iPhoto feel. So I'll talk about that in a second, 3-minute video. And depending on how much time we have, I also have, I talk about moments, collections, and years. I used to organize my photos by years. So I would have an album for 2012, and then I'd have an album for 2011, 2010, 2013. And I think George does well, or different albums for that. Well, with the Photos app, you no longer have to do that. It'll organize them by years. So I really like that. So I thought I'd talk about moments, collections, and years, which is very similar to how it's organized on an iPhone and an iPad. And then, again, depending on the time, deleting photos. In iPhoto, when you delete a photo, it puts it into the trash, into the iPhoto trash, but it just sits there. The Photos app does the same thing, but it will automatically delete the photos after a certain period of time. So it doesn't eat up your space. But you do have about 30 days to cover the photos. So I thought I'd show you that video there as well. So that's kind of what I have lined up. But I can take questions on anything with the Photos app, and I'll try as best as I can to answer them. So does anyone have any questions on the Photos app before I get started, or like that?
Dan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, we have a couple questions. Scott?
I use Aperture primarily for its organizational value. I like to have folders and multiple subfolders. Can I do that in Photos?
You can create folders in Photos, yes. So basically you created the album. They no longer have projects with Aperture. They're just called albums, which are basically what they are in Aperture. In fact, with iPhoto, they were called, and in Aperture they're called projects, but in all reality, all they are just albums. So what you can do is you can create a folder and put a certain number of albums in that folder. Now the question is, I don't know if you can create a subfolder within a folder. And we can try that to see if that actually works. Let's pull up my photos here. So what he's asking here is we have albums here. And you're going to see that I have all of my iPhoto events. This is when you import all of your photos into iPhoto, into Photos app. It creates a folder, this is here, of all of your different events. So that's one subfolder. Now the question is, can I create another subfolder? If I go up to File here, which I haven't tried, so yes, you can. And I just drag them in there. So you can create, so this folder here, iPhoto Events, has another folder in it, and then you can double click that and open that. And if I show the sidebar, again, which I'll show in the tutorial in a video, here's that sidebar. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Any other? Okay, back in the back.
Yeah, George, I had the question, I just imported all my photos.
1 second. I don't think you can hear me.
Okay.
I barely hear it.
Okay, can you hear us? Can you hear us better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just imported my photos into the photos library, and I found that one album that I had that had photos in a specific order got all jumbled. And I was wondering, what's the best way to correct that?
Okay, so let's open up an album here. And if I wanted to reorder these, so you're saying that they were all jumbled up here.
Yeah, they were completely knocked out of the order I had them in, and this is like a couple hundred photos.
There is a setting here, keep sorted by date. And you can see it has a check mark here. If I uncheck that, now what I can do is I can go and reorder them. Now, fortunately, I don't think you get back the original order unless maybe when you uncheck that, it might put it back in that order that you had in iPhoto.
Mm-hmm.
I have tried that. But uncheck that and see if it puts it back into the order that you had it in an iPhone. But that's about the only way that you can do it. You either sort them by date or you sort them by the way that you want to. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Thank you.
George?
We have a question over here before Mitch. Mitch, don't be, take one at a time. Thanks. Gentleman from Europe.
Mike McGuire. Slideshow, is it going to be, first of all, will there be a slideshow option, and how would it compare to what we had in iPhotos?
There is a slideshow option, and I say it compares favorably to iPhoto. I'm going to go back to my albums here. I'm going to turn the sidebar back off. I prefer it without the sidebar. So I'm going to go back to my albums here, and then we're going to go to, there's a couple different ways to do it. If I go to photos here, this is where we have my moments, collections, and years. So this here is what we call a moment. If you look over to the right, you're going to see that I have a play button here. If you can see that or not. When I click on this, I have different options for my slideshow. So that creates the slideshow immediately. Also, what I can do is I can click on the plus here, and I can go and create a slideshow, and I can go and change the theme. I can go and change the transitions, go and add music to it, much like I did in in iPhoto. And then what I do is I go to projects, and here's a slideshow that I've created for the tutorial. We have all the pictures in the bottom. I can reorder them. Over to the right, we have all of our different options. So here's my themes. Here's my music, and here's my time duration, that kind of thing. So it does have a lot of the same things.
Mitch, does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Mitch?
Yes, Mitch. I've got a couple thousand photos on my iPhone, and every time I put it in, it seems like it wants to import those 2,000 photos again. And I think it's causing a lot of duplications. And so I'd like to know, I mean, in iPhoto, it would just say, oh, you have 8 new photos to import. And it would recognize that I'd already imported all the others. I wanted to know about that, and I wanted to know, is there a program you can get to eliminate duplicate photos in your library, because Duplicate Annihilator does not work in this?
Answer to the first question is yes. When you import photos, in the tutorial, I go through it. See if I can, let's see what photo this is here. So it's my cat. That's not going to help because I haven't imported that in there. But yes, when you import photos into the new Photos app, you can have it only import new ones. If it's already in the Photos app, it won't import. So you do have that option. As far as duplicates, there are for iPhoto, there were some duplicate third-party solutions. I don't know that much about them. The problem with that is, although in your case it might work out, how do you determine what's a duplicate? If it has a different number on it, then technically it's really not a duplicate. and iPhoto wouldn't know that, or if it has a different meta tag on it, or, so it, they work to a certain degree. Last time I tried one was probably about 5 years ago, to be honest with you, so I really don't know if they've gotten any better. My only thing that I can say is give iCloud, to me, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've been using the iCloud photo library now for several months, and it has eliminated all of that whole issue, because when you take a photo with your iPhone, it just shows up the Photos app. There's just no duplicates. Now, if you use your camera, that could be a little different story, but if you use your iPhone primarily or your iPad to take photos, the iCloud photo library eliminates that duplicate issue. So, there are some solutions, I just don't know that much about them. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes, where's that setting to import only new?
Here, I'll show you here. I'm going to just take these photos out here. So I'm exporting them out. And now, I'm just going to delete this photo here, so it's no longer in iPhoto. So I have 3 photos that are duplicates, 1 photo that is new. When I import these back in, just going to drag them on top of the icon. You're going to see it says new photos. Now it's going to make a liar out of me. It does work. I don't know why it's not now. Let me try it through import. It does work. I don't know why it's not now, but right up here you'll see new photos, 4 photos. To be honest with you, I have no clue why it's not working right now. I just completely blew my whole thing right there.
Didn't he delete the photos?
Jerry, can you hear me, okay?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Jerry had a
Oh,
question.
I thought you deleted those photos so they weren't in photos anymore. Therefore, they would be new.
We only deleted
Say
one.
that again?
Did you, Jerry King thought you had deleted those photos.
Maybe I did. Let's bring them back in. I'm just going to import them. And again, we have our last import album, so there they are. Now let's bring them in again. There it is, already imported. So yeah, maybe I didn't do that. So it's not going to import those anymore because they're already imported. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner here, I can't import them. Well, I probably could if I selected, but it's already telling me that they're imported.
Any other
And
questions?
I don't know if you caught it. When I imported those, let's get back out of here a minute. When I imported those, they were actually hidden, so you don't even see them. I actually had to pull down. I should have pointed that out. So yeah, I must have deleted them. When I exported them, we took them out.
Yes. We have another question.
Jared, this is Paul Wassink. I'm trying to use photos, but I have a very large aperture library, which imports okay. I look at it, and the last photo is tagged January 1st, 4501, and photos ab ends. How do I and now I can't import my aperture library anymore because it's already in there. I can't uninstall photos. How do I reset and fix my aperture library, which is obviously where the problem is, and then re-import it?
Thinking off the top of my head here, what you may, let's take a look at this a minute. I'm going to quit out of here. When you create or import your photos from Aperture or iPhoto, if we look at where your library is, you're going to see that we have here an iPhoto library and a Photos library. It duplicates. So all of your Aperture stuff is here. Boy, how would you do that? You don't want to delete that, because then you're not going to be able to open up Aperture anymore.
Would you not want to delete the new Photos library?
Is that good enough to start photos up again?
Let's try that. I'm going to delete this. And now I'm going to open up the Photos app. I'm going to open other.
Create new, I
Yeah, see, it's not going to allow me to.
guess. Doesn't it allow you to create a new?
The reason is, when you look at this, it's not an exact duplicate. I have a Photos library and then I have an iPhoto library. When I open up the iPhoto library, it's actually opening up the photos in the Photos library. They moved all of the original photos into this Photos library. So if I delete this, let me try something. I'm going to open up iPhoto here and see what happens. Yeah, it's telling me that it's been migrated to Photos. So
Yeah, you can't do that.
so you don't want to delete. Number one, you could lose your photos or whatever. If you have a time machine backup, that might be a good way to do it. You have a backup of all your photos.
Sure. Restore my Aperture library so it's unmarked as not yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it migrated over to Photos. Because if we look at this, I'm going to show you this. You're going to see that they changed. It's now called Migrate. You can read this, but it's actually called Migrated Photo Library. So what you want to do is you want to restore your Aperture library before you open up the Photos app, and then try it again.
I'll try
That's
that.
the only thing I can say. I don't know why it would mess up, but
I've run repair against the Photos library and that doesn't work.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think that would work. You might just have a bad photo in there. So what you might have to do is find out where that bad photo is, and then open up Aperture and export. Where
Get rid of that photo. Yeah, it shows me where it is. It says its date is January 1st, 4501.
So what you might want to do then, this is what I would try, is restore the original Aperture library before it was migrated, find that photo, and then look at all of the meta information and make sure that it has the correct date in there. Okay. Then, once you do that, open it up in the Photos app and hopefully everything will be fine. That's what I would try.
Well, after I get it out of Aperture, I have to re-import it into
You'll have to restore before you migrate.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So, yes.
I take my raw photos and edit them in Lightroom, but I want to put them in Photos, and of course I can't do that. So what I do is export my Lightroom photos to JPEG, as JPEG, to my desktop, and then I move them from my desktop into folders in Photos. I'm then able to display them just fine in Photos, but I get a dialog that says, can't find the original, and I can't bring them up and edit them into Photos. I don't know where the original JPEG is. Does it exist?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is you want to check. I'm going to open up Photos here. There's a setting when you import photos. I'm going to go to General, and you're going to see Copy Items to Photos Library. You want to make sure that that is checked. If that is unchecked, when you import that into the Photos app, it's not actually going to copy the photo. So what it has to do is it has to find the original. So my initial guess is that is unchecked. So then it can't find, it's not copying it to the photos library. So you want to make sure that that is checked. And then when you copy the photos in there from Lightroom, the photos actually in the Photos app. And then you can do all the edits and Photos knows where it's at and all that. So make sure that that importing is checked. That's my initial thought on that.
One more question, I think.
I have a question that ties into both you and our speaker, and that's if you have Lightroom, why would you also want Apple Photos?
Well, that kind of goes along with the aperture thing too. Lightroom has far more features than what Photos does. My personal preference is I don't use all of those other features. All I want to do is take a photo with my phone and have it show up on my computer. I like to go over to my sisters. I take a lot of pictures of their kids. I want to show them, the photos that I took. All I have to do is pull up my iPad or my iPhone. It's a matter of preference. If you do a lot of editing or professional photography, or even an amateur semi-professional photographer, probably will not use Photos. But if you just want to keep them organized and share among all your devices, and you want to do minor editing, and the editing features in Photos is pretty good, then the Photos app is I think is fine. But it's just a matter of preference. What do you want to do with your photos? If you want to do a lot of editing, Lightroom is far better. But it doesn't have all of the syncing features and all of that other stuff. So.
Okay, Dan, why don't we get moving with the video? And why don't we stop after each video and take questions?
Okay. The first one here. Yeah. The first one here is a 5-minute video, and I'm going to talk about iPhoto and aperture. And so some of the stuff we covered in the Q&A, but we'll take a look at this and go from there.
Now, before we go and take a look at the actual Photos app, let's first talk about what happens if you've been using iPhoto or Aperture. How do you import your photos into the new Photos app? Let's go to my Mac. First thing we're going to talk about is how we import or convert our iPhoto or even Aperture library into the new Photos app. To do that, all we have to do is just open up Photos. So if I have Photos in my dock, let's go ahead and select it. So now Photos is open. Next thing I have to do is I have to click on Get Started. And now what's going to happen is Photos is going to convert my iPhoto or Aperture library into a Photos library. So now what happens when it converts this library? Well, it actually creates a new library. Then what it does is it imports the photos from your older libraries, such as your iPhoto library. Now the nice thing about the way that this works is you can still open up your iPhoto or Aperture library. If I go to my Finder, let's go ahead and go to my Finder here, and then go over to Pictures. This is where my iPhoto library is. You're going to see that I now have two libraries, an iPhoto library and a Photos library. So if I wanted to open up iPhoto, I can still open up iPhoto. Now, if you continue to use iPhoto or Aperture, any edits that you make are not going to show up in the Photos library because they're two separate libraries. So if you want the edits to be carried in the Photos app, you have to do all of the edits in the Photos app. You do not want to do them in iPhoto or Aperture. Now, the next question you may have is, can you delete the old iPhoto or Aperture library? I have my iPhoto library here. Can I delete it? Yes, you can. What Photos did is it moved photos from the iPhoto library into the Photos library. So you're not taking up twice as much space on your computer here. What I would recommend is keeping the iPhoto or Aperture library just as a backup until you're comfortable with the new photo. Now let's go back over to Photos. I'm going to open up my Photos here. can see we have all of my photos. So these were all in my iPhoto library. So what happened to all of my events? Aperture, my projects and stacks. Well, Photos converts projects and stacks into. So I use iPhotos, so I had events. If we go up to albums here, you're going to see that I have a folder containing iPhoto events. So any project stacks or events are going to be converted into albums in the new Photos app. Now what about the photos that and flagged in iPhoto? With the new Photos app, you can't rate photos and you can't flag them. All you can do is favorite. Well, any photos that were rated or flagged now have a keyword attached to them. And you're going to see if we go up to window here, we have Keyword Manager. And when I select this, we have our keywords here. And in my case, I have keyword for flagged. If I rated any photos, keywords for are 4-starred and so forth. So what about places? Well, places can still be found. Go back to our collection. So I'm going to close the window here for our keywords. And now I'm going to go back to photos. And when we're looking at our photos, we can view them as moments, collections, and years. So I'm looking at my collection here. And you're going to see I have a number of photos from the North Atlantic Ocean. So when I click on this, we have a map and it shows me where they were taken. Let's go ahead and go back. Let's take a look at Honolulu Lake Town. Click on it, and we can see where the photos were taken. So Photos still has places, we just have to look at them while we're looking at our collections. Now the photo does have to have location data for this to work. Any photo taken with an iPhone has location data. Now what you used to be able to do with an iPhoto on Aperture was add a location to a photo that did not have location data. As of version 1 of the Photos app, we can. So if you take photos with a camera that doesn't record location data, you're not going to be able to place them on a map with Photos 1.0. So the question is, do you want to use the new Photos app? Well, if you're coming from iPhoto, I say that Photos is a definite step up. The only feature that it's really is adding location data to photos that do not have location data. Other than that, you're really not going to miss much in the new Photos app from iPhoto. Now, if you come from Aperture, it could be a much bigger adjustment to go to the new Photos app. There are many features in Aperture that are just not present in the new Photos app. But it all depends on how you use Aperture. I mainly use Aperture to help me organize my photos. And with the new Photos app, I find it actually easier to keep my photos organized. So making the jump from Aperture to Photos, for me, it wasn't that big of a step. But if you use a lot of the things that Aperture had to offer, you may want to hold off on using the Photos app. So that's how we import or convert our iPhoto library or Aperture library in the new Photos app.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on to the next tutorial.
All right, this one I'm going to talk about iCloud, the iCloud photo library. So we're going to take look at a few of the settings that you have with the iCloud photo library. It does start out a little bit slow, I'll be honest with you. First minute, there's not a whole lot of activity on the screen. But after that, I get into some of the settings and all that. So we'll take a look at iCloud, which I'm a big fan of.
Now let's take a look at how we import from Cloud Photo Library. Let's go to my Mac. First of all, what is the iCloud Photo Library? Well, what we can do with the new Photos app is store all of the photos in the cloud. Now, the advantage of this, it syncs with all of our other devices. I take a photo with my iPhone. It automatically shows up in the Photos app on my Mac because it's using the iCloud Photo Library. I edit a photo on my Mac. Maybe I make it black and white. It automatically shows up edited on my iPhone or my iPad. This is all done through the iCloud Photo Library. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad and you've been using the iCloud Photo Library for the photos that you've taken with those two devices, how do you import them into your Mac? What we have to do is go to the Photos Preferences. So I'm going to go to, here we go to Photos. From here I select Preferences. When I select this, a new window opens up, and we have two options, General and iCloud. So we're going to make sure that we have iCloud selected. Now we have three options here. I have iCloud Photo Library. I just turn on and off iCloud Photo Library, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Now from here, it's telling me that I may need to upgrade my iCloud storage. If you have a lot of photos, you may have to upgrade your iCloud storage. On my personal library, I had to go with the 200 gigabyte plan. I'm paying $4 a month to store all of my photos in the cloud, so that I can access them from any device. I have about 20,000 photos. I'm going to stick with the free. Let's say that I may run out of space. I have enough photos and video where it may use up all of my storage. Let's go ahead and click on Next. It's telling me that I may run out of iCloud storage. That's okay. I'm just going to click Continue. Now what I need to do is I need to decide, do I want to download the originals to this Mac or optimize them using Mac storage? If I download the originals to the Mac, all of the photos and videos are going to be on my Mac. This comes in real handy when you do all of your editing on your Mac. They just automatically download to your Mac. The disadvantage to it is it may use some space. So if you don't have a lot of space on your Mac, maybe you have a MacBook Air, what you may want to do is you may want to go to Optimize Mac Storage. When you optimize Mac Storage, it places all the originals in the cloud. And then from there, when you want to edit a photo, it'll download the original photo. So if you have a lot of space on your hard drive, I would recommend selecting Download Originals to the Mac. If you don't have a lot of space, you may want to go to Optimize Mac Storage. Now we have two other options. I can turn on and off my photo stream, and I can turn on and off iCloud photo sharing. Now with my photo stream, what you can do is you can import your most recent photos from your devices without using the iCloud Photo Library. So if you don't want to use the iCloud Photo Library, go ahead and turn this off. And then what you want to do is you want to turn on Photo Stream. And the last 1,000 photos that you've taken show up in the stream. And from there you can go and import them into Photos. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the next video. So if you don't want to use iCloud Photo Library, because maybe you have a lot of photos and you don't want to pay for the extra space, you can use my photo stream. It's not going to be automatic, but you can't get the last 1,000 photos that you've taken. And again, we'll talk about this in the next video. We have another option, iCloud Photo Sharing. With iCloud Photo Sharing, we can create albums to share with other people, such as your family members or friends. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. And again, we'll take a close look at this later on in the tutorial. So now that I have iCloud Photo Library turned on, it's importing all of the photos that I've taken with my iOS devices. Also, what it's going to do is it's going to place all of these photos that I have in the Photos app into the cloud so I can see them in my iPhone or my iPad. Another advantage of iCloud Photo Library is it syncs your albums across all of your devices. I have an album in my Photos app, that album is going to show up on my iOS devices. Now, it does not sync your smart albums, and we'll talk a little bit more about smart albums later on in the tutorial. Now, if you decide to use Optimized Mac Storage, where it stores the photos in the cloud, how do you know if a photo is stored locally? Well, if it's not stored locally or on a computer, you're going to see a cloud appear on top of the photo. That's how we can tell if it's stored locally or in the cloud. So that's how we import our photos using the iCloud Photo Library in Photos.
Any questions?
George?
1 second. Can you hear me now, Dan?
Yep.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, Paul. Is there any way to force the Photos library onto an external hard drive?
Yes. What you'll want to do is, it's when we talk about managing multiple libraries. If I hold down the option key, I'm sorry, if I hold down the command key while opening photos, sorry, I got that wrong. It's the option key. I get my keys mixed up every once in a while. So I hold down the option key while holding down photos. I can choose where my library is. So all I have to do is move my library to an external hard drive. This is how I actually have my computer set up. Her hard drive isn't that large, she's got an external hard drive. So I move the photos library over to the external hard drive, and then all you have to do is just hold on the option key when you open up photos, and say, okay, this iPhoto or this photos library is on the external hard drive. And then just choose it, and from that point on, open up photos, it's going to look external hard drive.
Any other questions? Yes.
My son created a iPhoto library that said shared in the shared section. And I tried to get into it, and it said that I have to create an iCloud album or library in order to get into it. In other words, I couldn't get into it unless I committed to putting all my photos up there. Did I do something wrong?
So when you open it up, it asks you to sign in with iCloud?
Sign in with by putting my photos into the iCloud library, and that was the way it. I was directed to do it.
I'm not quite following. You can only have one iCloud photo library. I don't know if this answers it or not, but if we go back to my pictures here, I have two libraries here. I can only have one of them be the iCloud photo library. Again, I don't know if that answers it or not.
I was trying to get into his shared library, and when I did that, it said it directed me to putting my photos in the iCloud because, and I didn't want to do it, so I couldn't get into his shared photos.
And when you connect up to his shared library, is it through the, is it through the shared up here?
I think it was through my iCloud account. I'll try it again.
Yeah, and if you if you're still having problems with it, detail as much as you can and pass it on to George, and just have George email me, and I'll see if I can help out. I'm still confused on what you're trying to do, so like step by step.
You're not the only one. Thank you.
Any other questions on Mr. George? Yes.
Non-perfect. When I delete a photo on my iPad, will it delete the photo on my iPad?
Yep. That's with the iCloud photo library, keeps everything in sync. That's what I really like.
Yes.
So is there a downside to, say, downloading your iPhoto library on a flash drive? Like, for example, I have 60 gigs. And then after you've, of course, transferred over to photos, and then subsequently deleting the iPhoto library from your hard drive. I think you said you can do that. And is there a downside to doing that?
Downside to keeping your iPhoto library on a second hard drive?
Yeah, you just download after you've transferred the photos, I've downloaded my iPhoto library to a flash drive that's big enough to hold it, and then I'd like to free up that space on my MacBook Pro. Because right now I've got, of course, the iPhoto library and photos, two files that are both about 60 gigs each.
There is no downside to storing your photos or iPhoto library on an external drive or on a flash drive. Let me correct that. It's going to be a little bit slower because when the USB drive or whatever you're using, flash drive is not going to be as fast as a hard drive. So a little bit slower. See a difference? Depending on your computer, you may or may not. The other thing is you just want to make sure that you have it backed up. I've seen people where they will move their iPhoto library to their backup hard drive. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of having a backup, because if that backup drive fails, they just lost all of their photos. So with my sister, again, what I did is I moved all of her iPhoto library to a second hard drive, but then I added a third hard drive. I can make sure that hard drive, then you back it up to a third hard drive. But other than that, there's no disadvantage to it. In regard to taking up space, I'm going to go back to my two libraries here. This iPhoto library was 5 gigabyte. My personal library is about 120 gigabyte. When it imported it into the Photos library here, this library is now 5 gigabyte as well. And in my personal library, it's 120 gigabyte. If you look at them, I don't know if it's going to show me here, it's going to say that they are both large, but really they are not. This is a little bit misleading, because the iPhoto library, there's actually no photos in there. They're all in the Photos library. So even though it says, right now the iPhoto library says that it is taking up 5 gigabyte, it really is not taking up 5 gigabyte. It's taking up a minimal amount of space. They didn't actually duplicate all of the photos. So it's, like I say, it's a little bit misleading. That's why you don't really have to delete the original iPhoto library until you're absolutely sure you want to use the Photos app. It's not taking up any more space. So if you're worried about space in photos, it's not necessary.
Yeah, Dan, that's very confusing, because when I taught that class a few weeks ago, I kept trying to understand. It was saying that it didn't duplicate, but it shows that it does duplicate.
There's a whole technical thing behind it, but basically there's soft links and hard links, or aliases. If we're familiar with the Mac, we're familiar with aliases. I create an alias to something. I'm really not duplicating the file. Let's say I created an alias to this photo here on my desktop. It's not really a duplicate file. Well, that's essentially what this iPhoto library is. It moved all of the photos over into the Photos library. All of the original big files are now in the Photos library. And all of the files in the iPhoto library are now these aliases. So that's why they don't take up a lot of space. Unfortunately, it's just a little misleading, because it still looks like it's taking up a lot of space, but it isn't. So Apple actually wrote up a little paper on what they did there, and it's a little bit over my head. But I mean, I get the gist of it. There are soft links and there's hard links, and the hard links are all the original files are now in the Photos library. So.
Okay. Any other questions on that tutorial? So let's move on.
All right, this time I'm going to talk about, this is a 3-minute video, and I'm going to talk about the photo stream. This is if you don't want to use iPhoto library, you don't want to pay Apple for the space or anything like that, you can still use photo stream to import all of your photos. It's not as powerful. This is what this tutorial talks about.
Now let's take a look at how we import from my photo stream. Let's go to my Mac. Now let's first talk about what my photo stream is. When you take a photo with your iPhone or your iPad and you use an iCloud, your iPhone or your iPad will automatically upload that photo to my photo stream. Now my photo stream keeps 30 days of photos or 1,000 photos. It's a stream, so the more photos you take, the faster that stream is going to move. When you take that 1,000 photo, it's going to delete the first photo. You take that photo on the first day, the first photo you took is going to be deleted. It's a moving stream of photos. This is unlike iCloud Photo Library. The iCloud Photo Library, it keeps every photo that you've taken. Now the nice thing about my photo stream is you don't have to pay for it. It doesn't count against your iCloud storage. So what we could do is we can import the photos from my photo stream into the Photos app automatically. Now, it's not going to keep them in sync like Photo Library. I go and make an edit on my iPhone, it's not going to show up on my Mac. I make an edit on my Mac, it's not going to show up on my iPhone. It's not keeping them in sync. All you're doing is you're importing photos from that photo stream into the Photos app. Another thing is it only uses optimized versions of photos. It's still looking pretty good, but it's not the original size of the photos. So if you want to keep the originals, you want to use iCloud Photo Library. But if you're not concerned about the quality as much, then you can use my photo stream. If we go over to albums here, I'm going to select albums. You can see we do not have an album for my photo stream. That's because I'm using iCloud Photo Library. Now watch what happens when I turn iCloud Photo Library on. I'm going to go to those here. Again, we need to go to our sources, select it. And now we want to make sure that we have my photo stream turned on. And now I'm going to turn iCloud Photo Library off. When I turn this off, we're going to see a new album here, My Photo Stream. And all of the photos that are in that stream are going to be in this album. I take a new photo with my phone, it's going to show up here. Also, go back over to our photos, down towards the bottom, we have our photos. Anytime I take a photo with my iPhone, it's going to show up here. Now, there's going to be a web-optimized version, and any edits that I make will not show up on my iPhone. It does not keep them in sync. It only imports them. So that's how we import our photos with PhotoStream in Photos.
So that's another way of importing photos without using the iPhone library. Like I said, it doesn't keep them in sync, but it does import the photos into the Photos app automatically.
Any questions?
Mike McGuire, why would I want to use PhotoStream if there's even perhaps a more convenient way of storing the same photos in another manner, such as those you described earlier? I'm not sure what the advantage of PhotoStream actually is.
You don't have to pay Apple for storage. That's it. That's the only advantage I can see to it. Other than that, there really is no advantage. If someone has a lot of photos in their library and they have to pay Apple $4 a month for extra storage or even more, some people they don't really want to have all of their photos in sync like that. So that's just another way of doing it. But I don't see any advantage to it unless you just want to save a little bit of money.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm assuming that when you import them from PhotoStream into your photos, that they don't disappear like they do in PhotoStream. Right? They stay permanent.
Right. It actually imports them into the Photos app. Yep.
Thank you.
Don?
Yeah, so I thought there was a setting in Photos that would automatically import them. In other words, even though if I've got PhotoStream March, April, February, I have to say select all and then import them again, even though they're already in my Photos app.
I think that might have been an iPhone. In my PhotoStream, it imports them automatically. When you check mark this My PhotoStream, it's going to import your recent photos right into the iCloud Photo Library.
Right, and it keeps it in an album by month. But even though my phone says I only have 1,000, really it has not deleted the ones on my Mac because
It deletes them from the stream. So if you go to iCloud.com, you can actually see your stream. And those are the photos that it'll delete. It will not delete them from the Photos app once you import them.
So as long as my photo stream is checked in preferences, they will never get deleted from my Mac. But they're not the original quality, or they are?
Correct. Yep, they're web-optimized versions. Mm-hmm.
So I would need to then select them, and how do I get the real version if
if I have that in my photo stream?
With iCloud Photo Library, that's about the only way. That's the only setting for iCloud Photo Stream. Now this could change. Maybe they, they have something in the future, but as of right now, that's the only way is through the web optimized version. It's probably a way of get you to go to iCloud Photo Library.
Thank you.
Ron, I'm using an app called iPhoto Manager. Is that going to become obsolete, or is it obsolete with photos?
Is that to manage multiple libraries?
Yes.
I don't know if that will become obsolete, but you can manage multiple libraries with the Photos app, and it works the same way. Ironically, that was the next video that I was going to show us how to manage multiple libraries. The iPhoto that app that you're talking about is, I'm going to say it's not really necessary, because all you have to do is just open up Photos by holding down the Option key, and I can choose from my different libraries here. You don't need to have a separate app to do that. And if I want to create a new library, click on Create New. I want to choose another one, and choose another library. We want to watch the next video where I talk about multiple libraries.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
All right. This is, let's see, it's about 3 minutes long, so it's not that long. So we'll go here.
In this video, we're going to see how we can manage our photo libraries in Photos. Let's go to my Mac. Now, when we open up Photos, it creates a Photos library. I'm going to quit out of Photos here. Command Q. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Finder here, and we're going to go to our picture. I click on Pictures. This is where it places your Photos library by default. We can have more than one Photos library. Maybe you want to have personal photos and work photos. To create a new Photos library, what we do is we option click on the Photos app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the dock here. I'm going to hold down the Option key. Select it while holding down the Option key. And we have a window that opens up. This is Choose Library. Now you're going to see that we have one library chosen already. This is the library that we created, our Photos library. And it is the System Photo Library. The System Photo Library is the one that you can sync with iCloud. If you have multiple libraries, you can only use one of them for iCloud syncing. And that is going to be the System Photo Library. So if I wanted to create a new photo library, all I have to do now is just click Create New. Let's go ahead and select it. I name it. We'll call this one Work. And then I select OK. And we have a blank Photos library because I haven't added any photos into it yet. Let's go and quit. And now you can see we have two libraries, the Photos library and the Work library. So now let's say I want to go back to my Photos library. We have a couple of different ways to do that. I can go down to Photos app again and Option click on it. Let's go ahead and hold down the Option key and click. And you can see we have two libraries, Photos library and Work. So all I have to do is just select the Photos library. Another way, I'm going to go ahead and close this window. Another way is to just double click on the Photos library. Double click on it, and it opens up my Photos library. So to create new libraries, we just Option click on the Photos icon in our dock. From there, we can create new libraries from our other libraries. To open up any one of our libraries, we can Option click on our Photos icon again in the dock, or we can just double click on the library that we want to open. Now we can only have one library used for iCloud Photo Library, and that is going to be your System library. But you can create other libraries as separate libraries. You just can't use them for syncing. So that's how we manage our photo libraries in Photos.
So that's managing multiple libraries.
Any questions on multiple libraries? Don?
Yeah, he didn't show how he put photos into that Work library. Let's say you only have one library and you want to do it by photos into that work library.
So you mean if you wanna merge?
You want to take the photos that you already have and move them to the work library.
You already have where?
You only had one library. All your photos were in one. Now you want to separate them by year.
Okay.
How
What
would
you're
you
gonna
do
have to do is go to you're gonna have to export the photos that you want in the second library. Once you export them, then you can import them into the new library. Once you import them into the new library, you can delete them out of the old library. So it's probably what, a 4 or 5 step process.
Now that was the advantage of iPhoto Manager Library, is that you could work with both library. When it was working with iPhoto, you could move them from one iPhoto library to another iPhoto library.
Okay.
So that was the real. Now whether or not that's going to work with the new photo app, I don't know yet. You'd have to probably send an email to them. I would imagine it will at some point.
I would imagine it will too. They really didn't change the structure of the iPhoto library too much, so I'm gonna go with George here and say it probably will if it's not already.
So say export them to the desktop then, for example, and then import them from there to the other library?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Why would you want multiple libraries when you can sort things out in albums or events?
That's a good question. I only have one library, but it depends on how you want to keep them organized. If you want to keep work stuff separate from personal stuff, you might want to have a work library. But it's a personal preference. Me personally, I just have one library.
Thank you.
I keep my wives separated by each library. Because they don't want to be associated in the same library. Okay, any other questions on that? Don, another one from Don.
Yeah, let's say you just take, my wife takes mostly photos with her iPhone. And with the free, so she doesn't take raw photos or anything like that, or a lot of movies. With the free storage that Apple gives you, about how many photos could you put into the library before you had to pay?
Oh, that's a tough question. To be honest with you, I don't know. Let's go with this. I have 20,000 photos and I'm using them about, let's just go with 100 gigabyte. So 10,000 photos would be, I can't do that. 100,000 or 20,000 photos would be 100 gigabyte. So 10,000, well anyway, to be honest with you, I don't know.
What is the free storage that they give you?
5 gigabyte.
Thanks.
Don, maybe you can figure that one out. Okay, should we move on now? Okay.
All right, if you're coming from iPhoto, this one is going to probably be a good one because I talked about adding the sidebar, which you saw a little bit in the Q&A at the beginning of the session here. So it's about 3 minutes long.
In this video, we're going to add a sidebar to our interface. This may look familiar if you're coming from iPhoto, as well as how we can move the photos in a moment while looking at a single photo. This is what we call a split view. We're also going to see how we can change the thumbnail size. Let's go to my Mac. Let's first take a look at the sidebar. When we're looking at photos here, you're going to see we have photos, shared albums, and projects. I want to look at my albums. I click on albums. I want to go back to photos. I click on photos. Well, if you're familiar with iPhoto, what we had is we had a sidebar on the left side that had these same options. We can add the sidebar to the Photos app. To do that, go over to View in the menu bar. And when I select it, we have Show Sidebar. Now when I do this, the tab across the top where we have our Photos, Shared, Albums, and Projects, that tab is going to disappear. Let's go ahead and select Show Sidebar. Select it. And now you can see we have a sidebar on the left side. But again, if we go up to the toolbar, we no longer have our tabs there. So if you like to use the tabs, you want to hide the sidebar. To hide the sidebar, we go back over to View, and then I select Hide Sidebar. If you want to use the sidebar, no longer use the tabs. So that's how we show and hide the sidebar. Let's take a look at how we can use Split View to view multiple photos while looking at a single photo in a moment. So let's go ahead and select this photo here. I double click on it, and it opens up. Now what I would like to do is I would like to see the other photos in that moment. To do that, we go up to in the menu bar, and then we select Show Split View. And when I select this, we have all of the photos in that. So I can go and select a different photo. Let's go ahead and select this photo here. Now I'm looking at a different photo. So if we like to see all of the photos in a moment while looking at a single photo, show it in Split View. I usually leave this on. Now let's take a look at how we resize our thumbnails. Now we can only resize thumbnails for moments. Right now I have a photo here. If I go to the upper left-hand corner where we have the slider here, it's going to resize that photo. This is great if I'm editing it. But it doesn't resize my thumbnails for the moments. What we have to do is we have to go back to our moments view. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the sidebar, or go back to our moments view. Let's go and hide the sidebar. To resize them, we go back up to our slider, and then we slide it to the left or right. And then we can resize our thumbnails for the moment. Now we cannot do this for collections. So we can only do this for moments. So that's how we show the sidebar as well as our split view and resize the thumbnail in moments in photos.
So that's how like I said, that's how we can get that sidebar back in, like it was an iPhone.
Any questions? Yeah.
What was the location of that Air France?
That was at Moho Beach in Moho Beach in, now my mind is blank. It'll come to me. We're on a cruise and we went to, it's a French island and a Dutch island.
St.
My
Martin.
favorite Inuit times.
St. Martin.
St. Martin.
There you go, St. Martin. Yes. Yes.
There
It's
was
pretty awesome, actually.
When you showed the sidebar, there was a cloud activity symbol, icon. What did that mean?
When I showed the sidebar,
Activity with the cloud, yes.
oh, that is for your activity for your photo stream. So when you, if I turn the sidebar off, I'm going to go and turn the sidebar off here, and then we go to shared here, you're going to see an activity album. It's the same thing. And basically, whenever you, if you share photos, whenever there's activity in that shared album, like if I share an album with Beth, and she adds photos to that album, it's going to show up in this activity. It's basically where anything that is shared among different albums.
Any other questions? Okay, Dan. How much more time do we have, Jerry? About 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to show the.
Or 5.
All right. We'll show the moments. It's just 5 minutes long, but this is a new view. If you're coming from iPhoto, and I really like where you can view your pictures, moments, collections, or years. And I used to group all of my photos by years, and now I no longer have to do it because the Photos app does it for me. So we'll take a look at this. It's 5 minutes long.
In this video, we're going to see how we put our photos in moments, collections, and years. You have an iPhone or an iPad, you may be familiar with these 3 views. This is how we view our photos on an iPhone. iPad with the Photos app. Let's take a look at moments, collections, and years, and photos on the Mac. Let's go to my Mac. First thing we have to do is we have to make sure that we're looking at our Photos tab. We're not looking at shared photos, and we're not looking at projects. So I have my Photos tab selected. Now when we're looking at our photos with the Photos tab selected, we're going to be looking at them in one of four views: years, collections, moments, or we're going to be looking at the photo itself. Now right now I'm looking at my photos as moments. What are moments? Well, a moment is a group of photos or videos that were taken around the same time and in the same place. So think of it as a moment of time, an afternoon at the park. We went to the park, over 17, and these are all the photos that are taken at that park. Let's go ahead and scroll up here. We have another moment here, completely different date, completely different place. This is where we had our cider press. Now we can also view as a collection, and a collection is moments that are related. To view our photos as a collection, what we have to do is we have to zoom out. On my trackpad, I just pinched to zoom out. Or if we go in the upper left-hand corner of our toolbar, you're going to see I have a left arrow and a right arrow. Now the right arrow is grayed out because I can't zoom in any further. The only thing I can do now is actually look at a photo. What I want to do is I want to zoom out. I want to look at collection. It goes from moments to collections to years. So I click on the left arrow here, and now I'm looking at collections. And with collections, what it is it groups moment. So now I have those two moments that I showed you earlier, the park and the cider press. They're grouped together in a park, Lake Town, and Highland City. Now I can also view my photos as years. And again, I go up to my toolbar and I can click on the left arrow. Or if I'm on my trackpad, I just pinch to zoom out. Go ahead and click on the left arrow. And now you can see we have our years here. Now when we're looking at our photos as years or collections, what we can do is we can go over top of our photos to see thumbnails of the photo. Let's say I wanted to take a look at these photos. I don't want to open them up, and I don't want to view them as a moment or a collection. I click and drag, and you can see we have a thumbnail. Now, when I let go over top of any one of these thumbnails, it's going to open up that photo. So let's go ahead and let go again. Now I'm looking at that photo. I want to go back to years. To do that, we click on the left arrow again. It's to our moments. Click on it. Collections. Click on it one more time, and we're at our years. Now let's go ahead and click and drag again. Let's say I didn't want to open up any one of these photos. What I have to do is I have to drag to where the mouse is not over top of the photo. So it's not over top of a photo, and when I let go, it doesn't open up a photo. We can do the same thing when we're looking at our photos as a collection. Let's go ahead and click on the right arrow. We're going to view them as collection. I click and drag over top of the photos. We're looking at thumbnails. I let go of one, it opens it up. I go back, now we're looking at our moments. Now we're looking at our collections. Again, I click and drag. I go to where there is no photo, go, doesn't open up the photo. So that's how we view our photos as moments, collections, and years. A moment is a group of photos or videos that were taken around the same time and in the same location. A collection is a group of moments that are related. And then the years view groups all of your photos that were taken in the same year. So that's how we view our photos as moments and years in photos.
Okay, any questions, real quick?
Collections, you said a group of photos that are related by geography or time, both?
Both. And I don't know the exact algorithm, but yes, it groups them together by geography and time.
Any other questions? thank you very much.
Thank you.